Previously on MCC.
Hello, once again, and welcome back to another episode of MCC. I'm Timothy, this is David, that is Darnisha, and today we're going to be talking about women pre.
One of the things that was said in the conversation was that we're Christians. Uh, and so for somebody to say, well, there are some scriptures that don't apply to us, it's fine. It's fine. That doesn't apply to us. Because we were not commanded that was commanded specifically for a specific people, which I'm guessing the whole thought came from as a reference to the question being that time is outdated. Kind of sound like semantics. Y'all
That's
saying
what I
the
said.
same
Same
thing.
thing.
Uh, just the wording is different. But the one of the things that was said in the conversation was that we're Christians. Uh, and so for somebody to say, well, there are some scriptures that don't apply to us, it's fine. It's fine. That doesn't apply to us. Because we were not commanded that was commanded specifically for a specific people, which I'm guessing the whole thought came from as a reference to the question being that time is outdated. And the problem or the issue, as I see it, is that that law was created to be dissolved. When the law given to Israel was given, it was with Jesus Christ in mind. That Jesus was coming and this would be no more. I believe it's in Galatians that says the law was a taskmaster, it was a teacher, and that was its purpose. And when Jesus came, and if you want to call it new, you can. Fulfillment is what the Bible said. Jesus said he came to fulfill. And so that's totally accurate also. And so there are some specific things that we don't have to do, but in principle, which I think it has already been done. So I think both of y'all are saying the same thing. It's just a matter of semantics. But when we talk about women preaching for our discussion today, it's and specifically we ought to say as Christians and in the church. We ought to make that clear that we're talking about from a pulpit. Because theoretically and practically, all of us are called to preach or proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ. Okay, so that's every saved person is called to do that. So we're talking specifically about Christians in a church. And if you read 1 Timothy, and beginning in the first chapter, you understand that first of all, what Paul is doing is giving Timothy instructions on how to govern the church and what ought to be done in church. And so specifically, he says about the church, and you'll read it, and of course you understand that he was in Ephesus. So in essence, Timothy is what we would say the pastor of the church at Ephesus. And he says specifically those things, this is how you govern in the church. Okay, and so he says those things in verses 11 and 12 and so forth, and gives the reasons why. And often, though, since Old Testament has been referred to, often I hear people in support of women preachers say, well, what about Deborah? those of you who may have forgotten, Deborah was one of the judges during the judging period where there was no king over the nation of Israel. Deborah was a judge, and I believe the Bible calls her a prophetess. So what about Deborah?
I would say that's a different role that women would have been allowed to do.
Well, I guess you gotta define what the judges actually did.
I thought the judges made decisions, a lot of times legal matters, and of that nature of the people of Israel, because they didn't have a king. That was their form of government. If you had issues with, your neighbors or problems, or you could go to a judge and they would dispute it. Or if somebody committed a crime, you would go to the judge and they would make a judgment on that. That's what I thought the role of the judges were.